Hi, Affi. It's great to have you on board, mate. We've been speaking a lot on LinkedIn. I've followed some of your stuff. You've got some great stuff going on. We've had a chat about your businesses as well, but I want to get to know you a bit more and talk about some of the myths that we've been busting on LinkedIn and have a chat with you. So, if you want to go first, or I can just give a 2 minute overview of who you are, and I'll do the same. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. I'm Affi Khan. I'm CEO of CPL UK on the technology and healthcare sector side. As a recruiter, I did a bit of tech and mostly healthcare.
Yeah,
Um, I built a business in 2011 from scratch in healthcare, from 0 to 20 million in sales. Merged it with another healthcare business in the group, which was called Trig. Sold it to CPL in 2017.
hmm
And then since on, I've gone on and built a tech recruiter as well within the group.
yeah.
We formalized our footprint in the UK by creating CPL UK, which is now a top 1% UK recruiter. And my job is really lead in the healthcare and technology space, which are two great markets to be in, but
Yeah.
loads of challenges, loads of pitfalls too. It's as we come out of this pandemic, I'm doing my best to
Yeah.
lead the way forward for a great bunch of people that I'm lucky to work with.
Fantastic. I mean, I'll delve a bit deeper, but I love your leadership style and how you do it. You're quite unique in many ways, but we'll talk about that. But didn't you also done an M&A or an MBO recently as well? Is that right? Or
Well, that was more about a rebrand and bringing all the CPL brands into CPL UK.
Mm.
Which is basically a culmination of all the UK companies within the
Yeah.
CPL group coming together, sharing infrastructure and collaboration. It's about putting
Nice.
your egos to the side
Yeah,
and
yeah.
doing what's best for the greater good, and that's what we've done. And it's a great place to be. We've got an infrastructure that's now centralized in the UK: finance, legal, marketing, HR, the whole thing.
Right.
A really good place to plug and play and grow.
Sounds good. So myself, 23 years experience recruitment, started out the S3 group, 5 years there, placing interims. I was their top biller worldwide, actually knocking in about 800 grand a year, project program management, mainly into public sector. Loved it. Worked my way up there. Great training ground, mate. Learned the art of candidate management and client control, that kind of stuff. Set up my own business in 2003, got that to 100 staff, 30 million pound turnover, about 8 or 9 million NFI, great EBITDA, great business, great culture. Won lots of awards for our culture. So not just our profit, but also how we engage with our customers and our clients. So it wasn't a one size fits all approach. I sat in the middle of the office. It was a very kind of, manage the individual, not the team. And we had a lot of buy-in and it was a great business. Sold that through private equity, took some time out, quite a lot of time out. I guess my purpose has changed a lot since then. I was very focused on profit and the office and the numbers, still to an extent, but now I coach leaders in large firms and small firms around how to do all the organizational development, how to build their business, all the strategy, all the career mapping, but also how to really engage with their employees and their people and get the best out of them. And I do quite a lot with mental health and well-being as well. But the reason why I wanted to speak to you, mate, because some of firstly, your achievements on a normal level are fantastic, but
Thank you.
your style of leadership is really resonating with me because I think it's quite similar to me around. I guess why I've won recently, particularly on LinkedIn, is being a bit vulnerable, and I'm very passionate about vulnerability and leadership and showing up as our true selves.
Hmm.
And I believe you're the same. So I want to get to know a bit more about kind of you in terms of how you manage and lead. And I believe it's one of the myths around being vulnerable and being a bit the compassion and empathy piece. Historically that as leaders we were told to kind of just be this stoic, kind of put your suit on and shout at people kind of guy. What do you think?
Well, you know what, Chris, that is one of the biggest myths that I've had to deal with, and is about embracing vulnerability. Right? First of all, we're not invulnerable.
Yeah,
Leadership. Leadership is there's a strength in that. There's a character trait that you have to possess as a leader, and
yeah.
the big fundamental thing is about being able to bring people through
Hmm.
at the highest level of leadership. Um, so if you're a chief executive of a large organization, you're working through people. at a very strategic level.
Yeah.
So at some point, all becomes about how you inspire people. And the thing is, I don't look at this as like I'm pointing to the people who aren't like that and saying you're really bad and you're really terrible. I'm trying to educate, because I've been on a journey. The reason I do my videos, the reason I do the things I do, is because I've actually been there myself.
Yeah.
I became a leader very young, and I was, it was 2008, right before the financial collapse. I started my first company, and I learned from what around me was bravado, ego, and
Yes.
it's aggressive leadership. And there was tons of stuff going on in my own personal life, but I would never ever show that. I had to be fully 100% just
Yeah.
impervious. And what it did was it made me unrelatable in some cases. And actually, in the end, when now that the the market we're in and the world we're in is so chaotic, that actually that having that false sense of perfection,
Yeah.
actually all you do is you set your own people up for failure. Because let's say you are an inspirational leader and you're
Yeah.
putting yourself out as perfect, invulnerable, you don't get anything wrong, you're a genius, then what are your people um, looking up to?
Yeah. That's
They're
it.
also trying to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So when they
That's
have a
it.
bad day, or when their mental health is suffering, or when they've had a bad month, they think they're losers. They think, oh my God, because Affi's not like that, so how can I be like that? So actually, by being vulnerable, you let others also be vulnerable, accept it, and then they can shine too.
I think that's very well said and a great way to lead. But also on that point as well, um, it encourages people to come to you and say, Affi, actually, I am struggling with this, or I'm having a bad day, having a bad week, and they're open and you can help them. I think half the battle is, empowering them to have the expression of their own ideas, giving them the platform to tell you, Affi, I don't agree with this now and again, but also to be man enough or woman enough to say, I need your help as well. And that's so important. Otherwise, you create this environment where it's a fear environment and they're too scared to put a foot wrong, or they'll notch that KPI on the board for the KPI's sake and not actually do it. It's all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the KPI thing, you and I both done videos on it, right? So I know
Yeah.
that you and I, that's close to both our hearts. Like for me,
Yeah.
that's real nonsense nowadays.
Yes. Yeah.
The
Oh,
whole,
I mean,
the KPI, that's another myth, right? That,
mm,
if you don't have these numerous amounts of KPIs, like almost like you're running Moneyball or something, and you got
yeah.
100 different stats, everything
Yeah.
being measured, you can't run a business. That's a myth, right? That doesn't work anymore, right?
I think as well, but even at a level where you've got the whiteboard, you've got your top billers in terms of the amount of pounds that they've delivered, but
Yeah.
they may or may not be the best performer overall, because there might be some people beneath that who haven't got any money on the board, but they've made the progress around number of clients they've touched or the number of conversations they've had. It's all that kind of stuff, isn't it? It shouldn't be just a binary number. And also, the whole thing around just because you bill lots of money doesn't make you a great manager either as well. It's
That's
about
it.
understanding the core competencies of each person. What constitutes a good day, what constitutes a good week, isn't necessarily the billings. For me, it's how many business conversations you're having per day, what steps you're taking to build long-term relationships, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's it, exactly. And the thing was, it was actually used in education first,
Yeah.
where people started saying the one size fits all thing. And
Yeah.
they had a caricature of a jungle, and you've got a tree, and you've got lions, you've got monkeys, you've got giraffes, you've got elephants, you've got all the animals in the jungle.
Yeah.
And basically, what you're saying is, whoever can climb the tree is the best,
Right.
right? Because then what you've done is you've alienated all the other animals, and only the monkey is the right one. And that's
Yeah.
what, when you start looking at one size fits all, where everything
Yes.
has to work the same, people have different strengths. Like some
Totally.
people are prolific. You're a recruiter. You came
Yeah.
up the ladder just like me, right? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and I were both recruiters. We've never been parachuted, right? We worked our way up. So you know that some recruiters are just prolific relationship builders,
Yes.
right? They talk to a person and they're best friends with that person within 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And some recruiters are just workhorses and they make 100 phone calls. The end result is
Yeah.
very similar. So
Mm.
how can you have one measuring stick for everybody?
I think it's right. I think even in a training course, some people like role play, some people like presentations. You can go to that kind of
Yes,
that kind of level, can't you? So,
that's
and
it.
some people, you're right. Some people do like that KPI style. Some people don't, and I think it's just having that ability to understand each person. But also, this another myth on the subject of myths. Very much some of the business I walk into, that I walk in there and they show me the numbers and the head count and all this. If we can go from 40 to 80, we can double our profit. And actually, no. Before we even hire someone else, let's look at what we do have and try and maximize that. It's
Yeah.
not always the bums on seats that wins the prize, is it?
Yeah. Oh, I've been there. I've made those mistakes, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Because you take the head count, you divide it by the NFI, and you've
Yeah,
got your average GP per head. But what about your
yeah,
concentration? You actually
yeah.
realize you've got five guys doing 50%, and the other
Yes,
guys
that's
who are
often the case.
suboptimal. So
Mm,
you haven't got a medium. You think you've got a medium, but you've got a top 5% and a
yeah.
big lower percent. And if you can work on getting those guys up, then you've got a much more productive business, much more profitable business.
It's often the case actually that 80% of the fees come from like 20% of the people. Is an often I've got some answers on that, but why do you think that is yourself? What I mean, it's such a common thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so your answer might be different to mine, but I'll tell you what I think it is
Yeah.
because of my experience. Having built a number of startups, I find it's those who shook hands with Sinatra. It's what I mean by that is
Yeah.
all my co-founding teams, when I build a business at the
Mm.
beginning, those are the ones who end up going on to become the top billers.
Yeah.
And what is not I'm not saying because I'm amazing or anything like that, but simply because in some way, shape, or form, I've managed to be able to hire people aligned to the values that I have.
Definitely.
And therefore, they believe in what we're doing
Yeah.
and they sell the way that we want to sell. So they're living the brand like this. And
100%.
where it goes wrong is when it goes from tribe to company.
Yeah.
And the communication, the values are not translated.
I agree with that. I think that goes back to all sort of talent acquisition around where companies go wrong is they hire on skills or experience, but
Yeah,
also they fire on culture, behaviors, and attitudes.
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
The leadership team themselves have to have a very clear definition of what their values are and live and breathe it, not just put them on the wall and go, that's what they are. Live
That's
and
it.
breathe that. But also, I think you're right. I think it does just come down to leadership coaching as well. So the people that go up the ranks, the billers, become managers, they need to be coached how to become leaders way before they actually hit that thing. And then so when they are there, they can then manage the people beneath them. I think what happens is that leadership coaching is left till the last minute and they're kind of left to their own devices. But also, if there is no kind of career development plan around when someone gets promoted, what does it actually mean other than money? They're only going to be focused on money. So why, in a sense, why would they sort of start training and leading and coaching other people? Because there's no real tangible kind of goal or benefit. So there has to be an overall kind of vision around, if you get promoted, yes, you get the title. But what that means to you is you could be a position on the board, you could have some shares. This is where the
Correct.
company's going. But also, it's not half the time. It's not money orientated. It's career development. It's that kind of stuff that really motivates people.
I like what you say a lot on LinkedIn and some of your videos is not all top billers make great managers.
No, it's
You
true.
know, and that's the thing. And so that's why we've got to change what progression looks like because progression in recruitment companies naturally always ends up meaning you're running a team. But
Uh,
if you're just a super closer, if you are just Harvey Specter,
yeah,
incarnated, reincarnated,
yeah,
and you just want to close all day long, well, what's wrong with that? Why don't we build a
mm,
team around you?
yeah,
We can have a title, and those teams are just fueling you: resources, placement officers, booking
yeah,
coordinators, administrators, and you're just a machine. And you
yeah,
can
yeah.
have your own single there, but you have a clear competencies on what leadership needs to have. And it doesn't have to be that you're the biggest biller. Yes, you've got to be able to do the job, right? You've got to demonstrate
Mm,
you've got some pedigree behind you. But it's absolutely right. The biggest billers don't necessarily make the best leaders or the
no,
best managers.
I think as well. I think recruitment firms are generally quite bad at recruiting for themselves. That's, so it's a well-known paradox, and I think half of that is down to the leadership team wanting that fast buck, that bum on the seat, and not following that process. And I think that the whole onboarding, career development, induction is really important, but also offboarding as well. So culture is created, as you know, in internally, but massively created externally as well. So when people leave, they do leave. I think it's about removing that emotion. Sometimes it just happens. Doing a good exit interview, learning from that person where you can go. So anyone ever left me, I wasn't 9 times out of 10. I would never be resentful. I want to know why and what I could have done wrong, because I blame myself for that and that. But also as well, it's the power of a good leaver then speaking highly about your business can have a massive effect as well. All that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes leaders get too egocentric around, if you leave me, you die. You're dead to me. That kind of stuff. I just don't.
Yeah, no, that's so archaic. It's literally like companies where the second that you give your notice, that's it. They're marching you out the door 5 minutes in. You're like,
yeah,
go, 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 clean up on aisle 4.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, any other observations as well? I mean, are there any kind of major tips around how you built? You both built similar businesses. Yours is probably slightly bigger than mine was, but I got out a bit quicker. But I guess from my point of view, it was we had the right market, so we had good quality margins, so project program management, lots of repeat business. We hired people that were better than us as well in the area. So as a leader, I identified what my strengths were, but also what my weaknesses were, and hired in those gaps as well, all that kind of stuff. And that was really important. And recognizing that sometimes the best leaderships or the best ideas or kind of the people doing the role. So encouraging people to have that freedom of expression as well. There's 2 or 3 of my tips. What about yourself? How have you built your business mainly?
I think for me, one of the key things is starting with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd like to share some of my successes, but also my mistakes as well. I think I'm a big believer in it's good to share tips, but also share what went wrong. So I'll share a couple of tips, but I want to also share what went wrong.
Yeah,
because I think people learn more from that too. So the things we got right were and are not just were, but are, because we're still growing and we're still on a mission. We want to double the size of our business by 2025. So we're on a mission still. The key things we get right is start with the end in mind. I've always worked backwards from an end goal. Just from a young age, I've just always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I've never joined a company and just gone, let's see where this goes. I've always gone, I want to get to this number or this goal or this. Even in the way we get there is never the same way we thought we would get there. But it just becomes a North Star.
Yes.
It just becomes like a guiding light through all the chaos. Right. No, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. And that focuses people through all the ups and downs, Eurozone crisis, financial collapse, Brexit, pandemic, IR35. But we always had a goal that it kept driving resilience. So that was one big tip that we had. Always start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And the other thing was training and development.
Mm-hmm.
And is training and development. Just I always go out and look for experienced recruiters when I need them specific, if I want to access a specific market.
Yeah.
Like I want to get into this niche, but I don't know anything about this niche. Okay, I'm gonna go and get the talent I need, but I would always prefer to wrap that person up or that team up with my own academy people.
Yeah.
Just for my own values, my own. I don't want to adopt someone else's bad habits.
That's true. Yeah, and often, you bring someone in and they do carry a certain way about them that isn't necessarily aligned with what you want.
Yeah. And where we went wrong, the things we did wrong was, I think sometimes getting caught up in your own success.
Okay.
I think sometimes, we doing well, you're doing well, and not every year is going to be a great year. But also just like believing in your own ego and saying, no, we're just going to keep going. Sometimes if the market's tanked, the market's tanked.
I concur with that. I think I followed that same mistake as well around not really speaking to any of my competitors. Now I don't see anyone as competitors now. Like I'll share the love and collaborate, all that kind of stuff, and just being quite insular in my own thinking and my own little world around.
That's
Actually,
it.
if I open my eyes up, there's someone over there doing much better than me, actually. And I
That's
thought I
it.
was this,
How,
it's all that
how,
kind of
how are
stuff.
they doing it better? How are they doing it
Yeah.
better? And ask the question, 100%. And that happened. I think I believe at one point we had 5 years non-stop growth.
Yeah.
And then, so what do you expect for the sixth year?
Yeah.
Growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But
It
when
gets
the
harder,
market,
though, doesn't it?
yeah, it gets harder. But when the market's tanked, and putting unnecessary pressure on the team, or spending good money after bad,
Yeah.
just being belligerent, just being like, I'm not accepting this. That's not good. For me,
think
I
that's
think
right.
as a leader, if all the signs are telling you this market's, then sometimes you're gonna know when do you retreat and
Yeah.
go live to find another day.
That whole blind faith, it's got, we're untouchable. It always bites you on the arse, doesn't it? In the end, I think as well. So what's your next one? You gonna say?
My only other next one is changed now, but I've tolerated the wrong personalities.
Yeah.
I now have a no arsehole policy.
Fair shout. Fair shout. You
Right,
got to have that.
right. No matter how much someone's billing, no matter how amazing and talented they are, no matter how great they come across in their CV, if you're not a
Yes.
decent human being, if you're not a nice person, I don't want to work with you.
Oh mate, I've extrapolated or exited some of the highest billers in my business because
Yeah.
they were causing too many problems. But I think the last thing that I learned, probably maybe too late actually, was that ability to slow down to speed up. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is,
Yeah, I know.
we want it all yesterday.
Yeah.
If I could turn the clock back, I would apportion 5, 10, or even 15% of my time more away from the business and things like personal development, family, kids, and that kind of stuff, and delegate it a lot more, because it does catch up with you in the end. And actually, I think you can execute. I sooner execute 4 or 5 things really well than 48 badly. And I think I did burn myself there a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can relate. I've been there. I've definitely faced those burnouts. And the funny thing is, you've been there. You don't realize you're burning out
Yeah, until you do.
until you do, and then you just
Yeah,
can't do it. You just can't do it, and it's like, wow, you've got to take a break.
yeah,
So no, those are my tips there.
good stuff.
And talking of myths, I think one of the ones that again you and I share in common is servant leadership.
Right.
And
Yes.
I'm a big believer, you're a big believer, but I'm getting this. I've had this undertone over the years about servant leadership is like being soft, or actually
Mhm.
it's an excuse to let people get away with things, or it's not driving performance. And I mean that's total nonsense. I just
Absolutely.
I just want to know your view on that.
I mean, I totally agree. I think that there's a lot of firms that, not just in recruitment, but in general, that, when they interview a candidate, they expect the candidate to jump how high and be begging to get the role from the outset. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think it should be a 50-50 two-way street before they walk through the door around.
Yeah,
You expect the candidate to ask you questions and interview you, and you've got to sell to the candidate as well. It's there's a huge sense of entitlement on both sides of the equation, I think. But I think you're right. I think uh, it's about supporting, guiding, and serving your people so they can then be in the best position to actually deliver what they want for you. Because ultimately, without them, you haven't got a business. So it's a very much a Gary Vee thing and a Simon Sinek thing. But 100%, the modern day leaders have it ingrained in them. But some of the old school indoctrinated ones, they still believe that there's a hierarchy there. And yes, there's a metaphorical hierarchy, but I very much believe in treating people as I expect to be treated myself. It is a bit of an art. You've got to be ruthless. You've got to be the leader, but asking for help, giving them the right tools, and having that serving mindset is I think is a golden trait for a leader to have, definitely.
that's exactly it. And the thing is, I totally refute any arguments about servant leadership being a soft style of leadership, or it doesn't drive profitability. And for two key reasons, right? Number one, it distracts you from the real problem, which is poor hiring decisions.
Yeah.
Right? If you've got to micromanage or beat someone into shape every single day,
Mm.
at day in day out, how many this, then what you've actually done is you made a wrong hiring decision. So
Yeah.
you're distracting yourself from the real problem, which is you need to focus on your hiring process and your talent acquisition strategy
Yeah.
instead of beating the people up that you've hired who are not right for your business, right?
Totally.
So first and foremost, focus on that. And if you made the right hiring decision and you've aligned to values, you've aligned to competencies, and you've given them
Mm.
the right platform, the tools, everything to succeed. I'm not talking about not giving them the tools, of course, coaching, development, everything else. Then if you hire the right person, why wouldn't they get up out of the morning with the right motivations to want to succeed?
I think you're right. What you're angling at, I think it's such a true statement. People join people, they don't join businesses, and people leave people, they don't leave businesses. So most of the people that joined me, joined my business, joined me because they believed in me, because they believe I would give them as much of me as possible to make them a better person. And I think you can have your branding, you can have all your operational stuff, and have the machine and all this kind of stuff. This is why a lot of people leave big businesses, or a lot of people set up on their own, or a lot of people join smaller businesses, because they want that human touch. They want that personal development. They don't just want to be a number.
100%. And the other thing, and add on to that, is also the timing. I'm not saying that servant leadership is the silver bullet and it's the answer to every style of management through the industrial age, the farming age, the agriculture. I wasn't there in the industrial age. I never ran a
Yeah,
factory. So
yeah, yeah.
I can't tell you that that's the right leadership style for running a different sort of industry. But
Mm.
in the world we're in today,
Yes.
look at what we faced. Look at the chaos our people have faced, right? How can I justify sitting behind an ivory tower, barking orders at people and
Yeah.
not getting on the battlefield with them?
Exactly.
Servant
Exactly.
leadership, servant leadership to me is about hiring the right people and then helping them remove the obstacles. That's what I do. What's in your way? One of the key questions I ask every one of the key questions is one of my agenda items in key meetings.
Yeah.
What's your biggest barrier to growth? What can
Absolutely.
what can I remove from your way to make you succeed? That's it.
Yeah. And what tools or what can I do that can help you to be a better person, and listen as well? There's no point in asking questions if you're not prepared to listen to the good and bad
100%.
responses. So I love what you say. There's no surprises why you're doing so well, mate. And I wish you well. I hope we can do some proper collaboration in something in the future. I'd like to help you with stuff, but I think hats off to you, and congratulations on all your achievements, mate. It's been great watching you, and I'll continue to do so.
Oh no, well listen, we're all part of this change. I think
Yeah.
people like you and I are just getting started.